Discover the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast, hosted by Tiffany Benitez. Here, the complexities of being a woman in the tech industry are unraveled through discussions on key issues, personal growth, and how to succeed despite systematic challenges. It's a source of empowerment and inspiration for all women at all stages of their tech careers. Welcome to Women in Tech Trailblazers. I am so excited to be back for another episode with each and every one of you. And our guest today, ... I am super excited. Before I introduce her, the topic at hand is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's something that I consistently talk about with women, with girls, with honestly any of us. Like we all, I think, in some way, shape, or form have had to figure out how to find our voice. And then once you find your voice, how do you use it? Understanding the power behind it. It's something that, again, is near and dear to my heart. And I have an incredible guest here that is also super passionate about this and day in and day out truly lives helping other people truly find and understand their voices. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Sami Kinnison. She is a communication coach, speaker, and facilitator with the Belford Group. They help professionals and teams strengthen resilience, emotional intelligence, and confidence in communication. She works with leaders navigating transitions, team challenges, and high-stress environments. Shoo, I bet we all know about those. And guiding them to stay grounded and clear-headed under pressure. Rooted in the belief that resilience is not about avoiding struggle, but rather learning to move through it with intention. Oh gosh, I love that. As Sami helps people lead better, communicate more effectively, and build workplaces that feel more human. So welcome to the show, Sami.
Oh, thanks so much, Tiffany. I'm so excited to be here and just to get to have a chance to talk with all of these great trailblazers listening and all of the people who support and love on Women in Tech. It's such a great organization that you guys are doing. So thanks for letting me get to be a part of the conversation.
I just like, you stand out to so many of us, and I'll tell you, I don't know how many times you've heard this or conversations you've had, but I know you really stand out in this community in a way that you show up as your whole self. And like, even if we didn't know who your whole self was when you first walked into the room, like we're going to know when you leave. And I think there's just something about like presence that you carry that is really, really important. And one of the reasons I reached out to see if you wanted to be on the show, because, you know, our whole theme and topic is really around authenticity. It's really around like, how do we truly like view that? How do we not just make it a buzzword and something that we can really live out? So the first question we always jump into is, what does authenticity mean to you? And I'm super excited to hear what you've got.
So for me, authenticity means showing up how I am in that present moment. And so there are days that means that I'm not going to show up super happy and bubbly. And there are days that I'm going to show up crazy over the top. And even just this week, everyone else in my office, I think, was having a really crappy day all at the same time. And I was in a phenomenal mood. And I was like, well, I'm real sorry, guys. I hope your day gets better, but I'm not going to let you rain on my parade. I hope you don't mind that I'm sunshining on your rain. And I just did. And those kinds of things. And so showing up with the real version of you, the version that sometimes we're afraid to share, but I love to help people overcome that. Like the fear doesn't have to hold you back. Be who you really are.
I love that. And I think one thing that you pointed out that I think is really important for us to know too is that it's okay to have a bad day. Like you don't have to always have it together. I don't know why. I think maybe we're just kind of fed different things, like even subliminally from society, of like, as women, we always have to be on and be happy and have it all together. And I really wish we could like all kind of come together and create this different story of like, actually, it's okay to not have it all together sometimes, and you can still be incredibly successful and do amazing things, right? With just being authentically like wherever you are. And, you know, it doesn't mean like, okay, if you're having a bad day, like have a bad day forever or ruin it for other people. But it does mean like, okay, this is a day that maybe it is a little rough for me. And that's okay. Like I'll, you know, maybe pick which spaces I need to be in, or like call my sunshine friends. So they can remind me like it's all fine. Yeah, I don't know. I just wish we could kind of shift the dynamic. That's #goals for me, of like, let's just change that.
Well, and in my perspective, where I try to approach that, there's so many lessons that I take about how to live my life based on my toddlers that I have at home. And when you are feeling big feelings, you are allowed to feel those feelings. You are not allowed to hurt others or things, other people or other things in that feeling. And so even when you're having a bad day, by all means, you are allowed to have that bad day. It's not an excuse to then go hurt other people be mean to others, be like, well, I'm having a bad day, so I'm going to come off really direct and callously, or even just without. That's where the intention comes in, that you can acknowledge, hey, I'm having a really bad day. If the things that I say sound short, please know that that is about me. That is not about you. And let's reset for tomorrow. You can even ask that permission. Give me some grace. This isn't about you. This is absolutely about me. And that allows for relationship growth. It allows for you to be real. And also, as leaders, it is space for the people who follow us to know, hey, that's actually okay to have a bad day. And this is a way to handle it and to model it.
Yeah, I think maybe our world, we should kind of go back to the basics of when we were toddlers, right? Like
Always.
that lesson you just shared that you share with your littles at home is like so applicable for each and every one of us. And so maybe we just like, maybe we overcomplicate it. Like maybe we're trying to make it too like fancy or too many words. Like maybe we just go back to the basics to, yeah, I don't know, but I absolutely loved that. So it's a huge nugget of wisdom. Just like share where you are, you know, kind of be transparent on that, just so people kind of preface and kind of know that it's not you, and I'm going to work to like, you know, make sure that it doesn't come out as such, but at the same time, it's the reality of kind of where I am today. So I love that transparency and respect. It sets us up for a great day, no matter what's going on, right?
It absolutely does.
I love it. Okay. So I read a little bit in your bio kind of about what you do, but we have a lot of people, you know, our audience is a lot of like either women in tech, women that aspire to be in tech, allies, I don't know, people that just love what we talk about as women in general, which is cool. But I think a lot of us are trying to figure out navigating our careers and trying to figure out how these different topics that we're talking about really come back into our navigation of our careers. And can you just talk to me and the group, like just talk to everyone, share with us a little bit about your career journey and really how throughout that journey, you've really been able to understand the power of your voice.
Oh, yeah. So when I graduated college, I really, really wanted to train other people. I had been involved in some extracurriculars. I got to lead a bunch of workshops and do leadership development. And I kept saying, you know, if I could do this as my job for forever, that would be my dream. And then I let the little voice of doubt like overpower. And I said, well, who's going to listen to little old me? Who's going to listen to 21-year-old Sami who's never worked a full corporate job, and who are you to go train people on how to be better communicators? So I ended up getting a job in corporate, and I worked some corporate world stuff for about 5-ish years before I hit the point where I was like, I think I've hit my max tolerance of the politics and the just the like extra and the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy also really gets to me some days. So I left and went to work for my family business, which I swore for years and years I would never ever do. And here I am eating my words. And then within that space, I got more opportunities to actually help train people on how to help with their marketing communications and how to help with. Then it was like a little bit more of how do we help with when you work with people, and especially in a family business, the emotions tend to come up and they come out pretty quickly. And the doors really just all opened up that I was like, wait a minute, I could be training people on communication. And I really sunk in and realized I actually didn't need to go do something else. I had it within me all along. And it was the fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of how will I be received, and all of these things that kind of held me back. And I think that a lot of what I like to help people with now is recognizing what are the fears that are holding you back. And sometimes this may not be fear, that may not be the right word for you that resonates, but what's the risk? And we all have different levels of risk tolerance, but sometimes we are avoiding something because we haven't actually named what the risk is. And so whatever career move you want to make, what is the risk? There are going to be pros and cons. There are risks to leaving stability. There are risks to not leaving stability, and there are risks of staying in your job, and identify those. And then for your own self, what are you willing to tolerate? What risk are you willing to accept? Well, knowing everything may not work out. And there's also plenty of things that we tell ourselves, oh, I couldn't do that. And we really get down to it, like the risk is so low. Like, why not try? Why not at least put our name in the hat for a new position? The worst that could happen, the worst that happens if you apply for a job, you didn't have it now. You may not, if you didn't get it, you don't have it then. In theory, on paper, nothing changed. That's a pretty low risk. Now, yes, we have our own fears and what does this mean about ourselves and the conversation in our head, which is a little bit of the different story, but on paper we didn't actually lose anything. And so anyway, that's a little bit about my journey, and then started me on my pulpit, my soapbox of wanting people to just embrace whatever next step in your career you really want. What is it going to take for you to get there?
I mean, it's a really important one because I know that, like, okay, companies all day, every day, that's what we do. We evaluate risk, right? Like
Yep.
I'm in governance, data and AI governance. So the reality is we
Right.
are constantly reviewing what the risk behind what we're doing is, right? So it's no different as
It isn't.
humans than what companies are doing. And you have to say, here's my risk tolerance, here's our risk appetite. Like, you're going to have to take some risk, right? Everyone
Yeah.
knows that, even companies. And so what's the threshold of what you're willing to take? And then I think as humans, we've created this story in our head of like,
Yes.
okay, I can't do that. Or like you said, it's really like our inner critic talking about, you can do all of these things, but where's the other side of like, but you can do all of these things? And how do we really like start honing into that and not letting, like, being aware of the risk? It's not ignoring that risk exists, but it's maybe pushing ourselves a little bit to
Yep.
say, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? Like, you're
Hmm.
not doing brain
Oh,
surgery in this one decision, like, so you're
yeah.
not gonna die, right? Like, you'll try it, you'll figure out if it was good or not, and not everything works out the way that we thought it would, which is okay too. I think that's the problem. We're so afraid, and so that fear really like holds us back. But the problem is it's holding you back from probably what's the greatest thing that's in front of you.
Oh, yeah. And I use that exercise. What's the worst that can happen with all of the people who I work with? Anytime you have something that you're afraid of, I actually want us to identify what is the most unrealistic, worst possible case scenario, worst thing that could happen. You apply for a job, they're so offended that you applied for the job that you got fired. They told your boss you got fired from your current job, then you lose your house, then your family leaves you because they're ashamed. And we like, I mean, we go into it like, what is the
Yeah.
absolute craziest? And then it's like, could you survive that? Could you survive losing everything? And at the end of the day, for most of us, we probably could. And then it's like, all right, great. Now let's take a step back. And then we go, what is the most realistic worst case scenario? Because that unrealistic one is what our brain is kind of afraid of sometimes. When we say the unknown, we do. Yeah, I'm gonna lose everything, and everyone's gonna hate me, and I'll have no friends and no anything, and that'll be it. And it's like, okay, but what's the percent chance that that actually would all the way come to fruition, and that you would just sit there on your hands the entire time that that happened and you wouldn't take any other steps? Of course not. That's very, very, very teeny tiny little percent. So let's talk about realistic worst case scenarios. And can you tolerate that? Is that a risk that you'd be willing to take? Now, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. And if it isn't a risk that you're willing to take, there's an acceptance that can come with that to say, you know what? I accept my choices and I accept where I'm at right now, because in whatever situation, maybe I've got a lot of family stuff going on, and mixing up my work situation is not the right time for me right now. That risk is not something I can take this year. Okay. That's okay for that to be the option. It doesn't always have to be press forward, and accept that and feel good about it. You don't have to beat yourself up or constantly, I always wish I had more. Well, we decided this is where we're willing to accept. Deep breath in and out and continue to accept where we are, which is much easier said than done, but it's a practice, they say. You know, every day you practice it.
Said like name it, right?
Mm,
And I think really being able to like name it, walk through, like you said, that exercise of like, because mostly we don't, we just go to like, it would be terrible and then I'm not going to do it, right? But like,
right.
okay, maybe this is the worst thing and it's not that bad and I'm willing to like try it anyways. I really, really love that. Okay, was there a pivotal moment? I really do want to hone in on this, on our voice. And again, especially for us
Mm,
as women, because I think with all the risk and all of the things that we've been talking about, what that actually it leads to the fact that we don't take the risk, we don't make the move, but also we don't talk about it. And we don't lift our voices, and we're just not navigating and getting to the places I think we should be because we haven't quite found that out. Was there a pivotal moment in your career when, or maybe your life, maybe it was pre-career, I don't know, but a very pivotal moment for you where you just realized the true power of your voice and started using it? That could be to speak up, that could be to push back, that could be to advocate, but what was that pivotal moment for you? And then how did that really change your trajectory or how it turned around for you to help someone else? Before we jump back in, a quick thank you to Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas for being part of this journey. We cannot thank them enough. They continue to create space for women to grow, connect, and lead in tech. Let's get back to the conversation.
So everything, I've thought about this a lot, and there are so many moments, so many things in my life that can all trace back to this singular moment when I was in junior high. And I was talking with my friend. Her name is Meg. I'm going to send this to her afterwards so that she knows. I was like, why do people keep blowing me off? I feel like no one takes me seriously. I feel like when I say things, I'm kind of have the ditzy blonde persona, and I don't like that. Why does nobody take me seriously? And she said, well, if you want actual advice, I don't know exactly to the answer of why no one takes you seriously, but there are things you could do to make it different. When you are texting, you don't have to use like shorthand text lingo, which this was the height of, TTYL, BRB. Everything was an acronym, and you only spelled you with the letter U and all of these things. And I was full in that. And she said, every time you text, like write out the full word and spell it. Give weight to the words that you say, because every single time you communicate, that adds to how people view you. And it was this like tiny little thing that I was like, what do you mean every time I communicate that adds to how people view me? And I should not say BRB, I should say be right back. And so when I was in junior high, I can tell you where I was sitting at Ramey Junior High in the courtyard that doesn't exist anymore, and like where we were at, that I was like, all right, great. I'm not going to send any more like shorthand abbreviations. I'm going to type it out. This also, I was still paying, my parents were paying per text message. So everybody listening who didn't know that, it was 10 cents per text at the time, which meant if I was not going to use shorthand, not only was I committing time, I was committing money to make my voice be different, because you had to save all those characters. And so really had to be specific and intentional with everything you sent. And I decided, nope, I'm gonna change this. And then sure enough, like the perspective started to change and people started treating me differently. And that is actually, that moment led to me getting a degree in communication, singular, not plural, because I care about the art of rhetoric and the words that we say and the philosophy behind all of these things. And that everything that you put out does contribute to how people view you. And if you have an issue with it, you can change it. If you have no issue with it, go with God, have a great time, like do all the things. But if you're like, man, I wish this could be different. This kind of falls in that same advice, dress for the job you want. I also say talk for the job you want and communicate for the things that you want in your life. And where that has evolved is you also really have to communicate to yourself in that way. And if you are saying one thing out loud, but you say a different thing in your head, one, for my own self, that is a conflict of my authenticity, where I'm like, nope, I can't be beating myself up and then tell my friend, stop beating yourself up in your head. I'm not being authentic to my own self, and I'm being rude to my friend's friend. You got to start with baby steps. If you can't decide to stop criticizing yourself, do it for your friend, because your friend would not want their friend to be treated that way. Fine, I will do it for my friend Meg. I won't treat myself in this way because Meg wouldn't like it. So that voice in your head is really that next iteration. And once you can get that tuned into a good frequency, oh my gosh, the world is your oyster. Everything opens up, I think, once we start talking to ourselves in a healthy way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think this is really, really important for us to hone into as women. So I know showing up for many of us, right, in the technology space, 28%. I mean, mostly I'm the only woman in most rooms, right, in leadership conversations. And that's okay. But what that means is that, and I think a lot of us have heard, like, oh, you got to like work harder. You got to, make sure, you're seen. I don't know, all of those things. But what I think that really equivalates to, going back to what you said about your words, is that it doesn't mean you have to talk all the time to be heard, but it means that when you say something, when you raise your voice and you're the only person, the only woman in that room, make sure that you're educated about what's happening, who's in that room before you go, what's taking place in that meeting, what do these stakeholders need? What are the outcomes, right? And truly knowing who's in that room so you can cater what it is that we're talking about and what needs to come out of it accordingly. There's just, you just need, I mean, I honestly can think that's good advice for anyone, but I say as women, as we're really trying to fight for these seats and we're, really like trying to make a space and have our voices be heard, make sure that what you say is of value, right? And it's not overthinking it, and it's not being inauthentic. It's just making sure you understand before you walk into the room, because as quickly as you can gain the value, like, you can lose it as well, right? And so there are just some stereotypes that are thrown towards us as women, and so just not feeding it, it's like almost not giving the ammo for the gun. Like, just don't feed that.
Right.
Make sure that you show up fully. Make sure that you're adding value to the conversation, that you're not afraid to speak up, that you don't let people, barrel rush you. And I do think it goes all back to the words,
It
back
does.
to what you just said, like, be right back versus BRB. And while that might look a little bit different, like in a corporate meeting, ultimately, I feel like it's the same, right? Like, know what they're talking about, be able to speak up and add value. And I don't know, it goes a long way. I mean, truthfully, that's how jobs are happening. People are mostly tapped for jobs now. I mean, the reality is, like, as a hiring manager, I do my own recruiting a lot because it has nothing to do with friendship, but it's like, you take so much risk. And if your team is a small size or you just don't have a lot of headcount, you like, how much risk can you actually take to get this wrong? And it's kind of stinky, but it's the reality. So just how do you become the name that people think of? And I think it's a lot about your personal brand. It's a lot about how you communicate and the relationships that you build.
And can I add to, when you're showing up in meetings, I really, really want to encourage everybody, don't be afraid of asking questions, because so many times somebody says, oh, I didn't want to ask a question because I was afraid that I would look dumb or I would seem stupid or whatever it is. I really just, I'm going to stand on behalf of all the question askers that it is okay to ask questions, to say, I really want to understand the why behind this. I want to understand, what are we intending to accomplish? And the more you ask questions, the better kinds of questions you'll ask. That's also a skill to develop. In the same way you go to the gym and you don't pick up 200 pounds day one, when you start lifting and asking those questions, you get better questions. And I would be willing to bet a lot of money that almost every time you ask a question, somebody else was thinking it and was too afraid to ask it. And I will tell you, I have set aside my pride. I'm not afraid to look dumb and ask the really obvious questions, especially when I feel like we're not actually addressing those. And almost every single time somebody comes up to me and says, thank you for asking that question. I was thinking the same thing and I was too afraid to ask. Ask the question, speak up. That doesn't have to be, I'm standing up with my opinion and here is, my view of the world that everybody should follow. You are contribute, help people understand, especially when too many times we're saying, well, why do we do that? Because we've always done it that way. Nope, not a good enough reason. We got to articulate what is the benefit of what we're doing. So ask more questions. That's a great way to maybe even practice your speaking up. If it doesn't feel safe enough to assert your opinion, ask some questions.
I really like that, because I think we feel like for some reason that it makes us look weird or odd or unintelligent to ask the question. It doesn't.
Right.
People, you're asking what everyone else is already thinking, and it also shows that you have the courage to kind of speak up. Okay, so if I was, let's just say, I was like, if somebody in the audience or whatever, we were really like, okay, great, this sounds really good, and I really want to start using my voice. And there's a lot of things that I could do, but where do I start? What would be like a step one on how someone could really start tackling of figuring out their voice and truly using it?
I think step one is, for me, awareness of how you're talking to yourself. And I think that you've got to build that, because the things that you're talking to yourself are going to come out even if you don't realize it, and that's going to flavor all of the other stuff. And so if you don't even notice, if you could not describe the tone of the conversation that you're having with yourself, take a moment and notice over the next couple of weeks. Write it down. I can give a step two, practice saying things, practice with other people. If you've got a big conversation coming up that you maybe are concerned about, or there's a meeting or there's a feedback session, find a friend and practice. Like, actually say words. Say, okay, friend, I want you to be my boss, and I want you to pretend to be the meanest version of my boss that you can be. And I'm going to practice handling that conversation. Okay, now try be a more realistic version of my boss, and let me practice that conversation. I don't think that there's any shame in doing reps over and over again. And that kind of helps you work on a little bit of that improv skill, because as much as I love to script out a conversation, no one ever actually responds in the way that I thought they would in my head. And so you do have to pivot on your feet. But having those practice sessions really does give you that opportunity to see what could this go like and what could be the outcome that I get from it. So check yourself, what's your tone of your voice to yourself, and then practice with other people anything that you're wanting to speak up about.
I mean, you don't run a marathon without training, right? So if you want to get better at something, you've got to figure out how to like talk and practice through it. And then I love how you talk to yourself. I think the reality is whatever is inside you is what comes out, right?
Yes.
So that's fine if there's some work that needs to be done, but focusing in on maybe doing a little bit of that work, because confidence is key to anything. So showing up, like you can show up, you can be the most amazing person that shows up, you can ask the best questions, but confidence is loud and it is actually the key to success. And so it's not being cocky, but it's being confident, and it's understanding who you are, why you're at this table, you deserve to be at this table, and what you offer. Like, what is your value add? And the most diverse tables are the strongest tables. And so just understanding some of those basic things, I think are super important to really like finding your place and knowing that the place that you're in, like, you should be there, right? Like you're more confident to use your voice if you know, like, I belong here, or there's a purpose and a value that I add. So I really, really love that. Okay, we are coming up on my least favorite part of every single episode, and we're coming on the end. But there is a last question that we ask every single guest, because I don't know, you guys have so many incredible insights and nuggets and wisdom, and in like 30 minutes, it's hard to get all of that, but I have so many key takeaways, and the goal is for people to then reach out to you, because like, I want to know more. So just know I'll be reaching out, because I think there's just some really cool ways to bring that back in, like to the conference rooms, right? And and that's what you do as a job every day. But I think I really love just like listening to your feedback and how it does really start with self, and you take it back to some of the most basic concepts that like any of us could understand. Okay, but last question is a two-part question. It's number one, what legacy do you hope to leave? And number two is, if you could give our listeners one piece of advice, what would it be?
Okay, so the legacy I hope to leave, I'm in the middle of writing my book right now, and I'm gonna sound, kind of makes me sound a little bit woo-woo, and I love it, but I think that we all have a deep inner heart language that is the way that the inside of us really, really speaks. And we all have to learn, in my opinion, a second language of whatever it is that's coming out of our mouth, and figuring out how to translate what's really in your heart to what's coming out of your mouth, whether that be English, Spanish, French, German, Chinese, whatever language that is, heart to mouth. That translation is what I want to help people do. And that is what I want people to be able to speak that true inner self confidently, articulately, and efficiently, all of those things. That's the legacy I hope I leave, is tools to be able to learn your heart language and be able to communicate it in a way that makes such a difference for yourself and everyone around you. So hopefully by the end of this year, you guys can come follow on my social medias to see the book journey. Also, book journeys are complicated, so who knows exactly when the deadline will be on when it'll come out, but follow along. I'm letting snippets out on all my LinkedIn posts as well. And then two, the advice I would have for people is, you have so much innate value just by being you, your lived experience, your background, the women who are entering the workforce, people who've been in other areas and industries coming into tech. Everything that you bring makes you so uniquely positioned that no one else on the entire planet has your perspective and your voice. And if by not developing that skill to share your voice with others, you are holding back something precious and a gift from everyone else. And I just want to encourage you, hone your gift to give it to others. I think as women, we so often don't want to do the selfish thing. And so fine, trick yourself into saying, I'm doing this for someone else. I don't put the oxygen mask on first for my benefit. I put it on so that I can be breathing oxygen to put the oxygen mask on the child next to me or whoever it is next to me. But even though it is for your benefit, and that is a good thing to do as well, if that's too hard for you, you're like, that's too selfish, start with the baby step. Do it for the people around you. Do it for the people looking up to you. Do it for the people who are going to come after you, because you will make their way easier. So develop your precious gift of your voice and let it be known to everyone around you, because I just want to see all of these shining gems of voices everywhere. So that's what I hope to leave people with.
I love it. It's incredible. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming to spend time with us and just share so many nuggets of wisdom that I'm just sitting here processing as you're continuing to talk. You have such a way to articulate, but again, in a way that like anyone can understand it. It's just incredible. So again, thank you so much for being on the episode today. You guys, as usual, her LinkedIn will come up at the end of the episode. Go out and follow her. We're definitely excited about this book. I can't wait. And she also, you can see in her background, she also runs a podcast, Be Freaking Awesome. So go out and follow her podcast, follow all the amazing things that she's doing. And to our listeners, thank you for each and every one of you. This doesn't happen without you. So super grateful. If you have ideas for different topics that you'd like to be heard, reach out and let me know. Otherwise, just continue to like, subscribe, and listen. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. You've been listening to the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast. Thanks for being here. If something resonated with you, please share this episode with your friends, your colleagues, or anyone you know that needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to catch what's next. We'll be back soon with more real stories and honest conversations. Until then, keep showing up and let's keep making space at the table.